What is going on, YouTube community? In this video, I'm actually going to be explaining all these MT4, MT5 parameter, which is balance, equity, free margin, margin level, and margin. I've been receiving a whole lot of requests from people asking me to explain all these parameters, especially beginners, because these parameters is definitely things you need to know as a forex trader. You need to know everything that has to do with your trading platform. All right, so I will be taking all of them one after the other. This is just a demo account that I actually opened. I created it not quite long ago for the purpose of this video, and the trade that I placed is just a random trade. There is no analysis made on this trade. It's just for what? For the purpose of this video, and is it on a demo account. So without wasting much of your time, let's dive into the video. But before then, do well to subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. Please do well subscribe and also like this video. Now, the first parameter you are obviously seeing is balance. Balance is actually the money you had before placing any trade, the money you had before opening any trade, or it can also be the money you have after closing your trade. All right, so in other words, your equity can be your balance. Once you close your trade, automatically your equity becomes your balance. But all these parameters actually shows when you place a trade. If there is no trade running, the only parameter you are going to have is balance, equity, and free margin. Balance, equity, and free margin. That is the only parameter you are going to have when you close, when there is no trade running. And if there is no trade running, your balance, equity, and free margin are always the same, right? So you only have these other parameters showing up, which is margin level and margin, when there is a what? When there is a trade running. Let me close this trade so you see what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm closing this once. Yeah, so the two trade have actually closed, and as you can see, what we only have here is balance, equity, and free margin. Your balance, equity, and free margin are usually equal if there is no trade running. Other parameters actually showcase when you place a new trade. So let me place a new trade now so you see it. Let me buy since I sold the previous one. Great. So as you can see, I've bought Euro USD with one standard lot. So looking at it now, our margin level and margin has actually done what has actually showcased. And as you can see, our balance and our equity and our free margin are no longer the same. That is because we have a running trade now. We have a running trade now. So our balance is the amount of money we had before placing any trade, or your closed equity. Your balance is the amount of money you had before placing any trade, or your equity, your closed equity, which means no matter what your equity is floating at, once you close it, it becomes your balance. As you can see, my equity is floating on 2,913.71. If I close this trade now, my balance will be 2,913.71. So that is for balance. Now let's go to equity. Equity is your balance plus or minus your floating profits. All right, your balance, equity is your balance plus or minus your floating trade. Let me take it again. Equity is equals to balance plus or minus your floating trade. If your trade is floating in positive, that is, if your trade is positive, then obviously your balance is your new equity is going to be balance plus what? Your floating profits. Yeah, but if your floating trade is negative, then your equity is going to be balance minus what? Your floating loss. So as you can see on this particular one now, we are on profit of $10. So our equity is going to be what? Our balance plus what? Our balance plus our floating profits, which is 6.57, and that is giving us our new equity. Now, had it been we were on a loss, if had it been we were on a floating loss, our equity would have been balance minus our floating loss. That will give us equity, as simple as that. So as you can see now, we are on a negative trade, all right? We are on a floating loss. So our equity have actually changed. Our equity is now balance minus our floating trade, which is 60.43, and is giving us 2,846.71. If I decide to close this trade now, my balance will automatically be my equity. So let's go to the next one, which is free margin. So your free margin is actually your equity minus margin. Equity minus margin will give you your free margin. As simple as that. There is no hard calculation. Your free margin is equals to equity minus margin. Now let's go to margin level. All right, margin level is equity divided by margin multiply by 100. As you can see, is on percentage. All right, that is a margin level percentage. Is margin level percentage is equals to equity divided by margin multiply by 100. We give you your margin level percentage. Now let's go to the margin, because this margin is one of the important one that you also need as a trader. You might have heard people talking about margin level, your trader margin call, maybe your broker send you a margin call. What influences it actually is this margin. All right, so margin is the amount of dollar you need to open a trade of a particular currency pair with a particular lot size. All right, let me come again. Your margin is the amount of dollar you need to open a trade of a particular pair with a particular lot size. As you can see on this pair, I'm on Euro USD with a lot size of 1. So what it's trying to tell me is, for me to open a trade with one lot on Euro USD, I need a minimum of 114.39 USD. All right, let me come again. For me to open a trade on Euro USD using a lot size of 1, I need a minimum of $114.39. So that is what margin is all about. However, it is somehow related to your with your leverage. This one is dependent on the leverage that I used. All right, so you get a call of equity or a margin call from your broker when your equity falls below your margin, or when your equity becomes equals your margin. Because in other words, if your equity becomes equals to your margin, that means you can no longer have a trade running on that particular pair with the same lot size. So you will get what is called auto liquidification, which means your broker will automatically close all your trade. That is for margin, and that is the one you should definitely be paying much attention to as a forex trader. You wouldn't want your equity to go below your margin when you have a running trade. That's why you need to calculate all your trades perfectly. So I hope this video did help you understand all MT4 parameters. If you have any other question, do well to drop it on the comment section. If you do not have any question, then subscribe to this channel and like this video. That's all for this one. See you in the next video.